All right, based on some feedback on YouTube, we got another video we're going to film today. Ben's going to walk us through a couple things.
Yep. So we'll go out. It's pretty late in the season right now, but it's been so warm. Some of the coyotes have been rubbing. It's getting so hot that you can't really, there's no lag time in trapping. So if you get something, you got to get it taken care of right away. It's not like when it's cold out, and it kind of gives you a day or two to really start working on them. So, but yep, we're going to go out. Some of the feedback that Brian's given me based off his channel is, you know, the different types of coyote sets we're going to do, the different types of badger sets we're going to do, some different types of snaring techniques, and we'll just kind of go through a whole gauntlet of things. Very basic, very introductory level, excuse me. And yeah, we've got everything loaded up in the back of the truck right now. We got our trap bucket, very, very important.
Yes.
And we got this, so we're going to get going.
Cool.
Alright, so we're driving out here right now. We got about, close to a mile and a half drive in to get where we want to start setting traps. One thing you're going to see is that we're actually driving through a wheat stubble field. And one of the biggest things I want to make sure that we all understand is make sure you get permission from your landowners before you start driving through their ground. Some of them are no-till farmers, some of them just don't want you driving on it. It's more of a respect type of deal. So before you get out there and start putting steel out there or whatever else, make sure you get permission. The way I got permission on this is just because of the sheer amount of weight I have in my traps. Probably by, you know, to really set this property correctly, due to the sheer size of it, we would most likely have, probably 30, 35 traps out here, all said and done. So that much weight is not easy to kind of deal with. So it's far easier to drive in. It's been dry. We got moisture coming in later this next coming week, so I'll be fine with that. But as we drive back in here, one thing I'm looking for is a vantage point from where I can see the traps. And so Brian and I, before we drove in, got up around on the high point and make sure we could see where we're going to be setting traps. And so we are at the first place where we can actually see the traps from a vantage point, and we'll go ahead and get in there and we'll go ahead and put a couple sets in. And some of the requests that have come through Brian's channel has been about doing the different types of sets that you do for coyote. And so I'll show you some coyote and badger sets. They're kind of one and the same for the most part. Badger's a little bit different, but not much. But let's go ahead and get started. All right, so Brian and I are out here. We drove in on the property. We're on the far edge, the farthest we can see from a good vantage point. So I kind of picked this location right here. Is we got a little drainage to the right of us. We got a wheat stubble field to the left of us. And then we got some stripper head wheat that's cut really high. Then it's into a wheat field that's cut a lot shorter. So I'm going to use this natural edge as a travel corridor to kind of pick up the coyotes. Now, it's not the most ideal location, but it's really good still. It should be okay. And so I'm going to look at the natural topography of the ground that's just right out here. And I'm going to pick a spot. I really don't want to pick any low spots. The reason why I don't want to pick a low spot is because of the drainage. We're supposed to get some moisture here later on this coming week, and so you kind of have to plan ahead. More times than not, your first night sit on your trap sets typically are not that productive on coyotes. It's days 2 to day 5. You start picking them up, and then 7 to 9 is when you really start picking them up. So I'm planning ahead for this. So I'm going to go ahead and pick my location and start getting the trapping stuff going. Okay, so what I'm doing right now is I'm going to use stands of wheat, this hump right here, those spots behind us. And so what I'm trying to do is pick an area that have natural backing, so that way the coyotes have to step where I want them to step. Now I'm going to have all this excess dirt. The reason why is I've got some antifreeze dirt that I'll put in here so that way I can plan ahead too for the moisture. So the freeze thaw, my trap is never frozen, so that's the biggest key. So this dirt is really good though because it adds extra scent in there in the area. Fresh dirt smell, it's a good thing. And so it just adds some more curiosity to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of this and throw it upwind, throw it downwind, and vice versa. Just try to get some of the area so that way they can smell something's fresh, something's not the same. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pound in my stake. This is a 22-inch rebar, half-inch, nut weld on top. I'm using a Bridger number 3 modified, dogless. I just started using these this year. They've been doing pretty good. I want to get some more time with them. The 650 is what I use typically, and had always had good luck with those. But I'm going to go ahead and pound this in. We're not going to get it bedded in yet, just quite yet. The reason why is later in the season I want this set to look really, really good. These coyotes are smart. A lot of the dumb ones are gone by now, so there's going to be a lot of fine tuning on it. Alright, so we got this in. One thing you're going to notice on this trap, and this is a lot with a lot of the traps that come out from the factory, is that there's only 2 swivels on it. There's a swivel right here on the base plate, and there's a swivel I use to pound in my stake. Ideally, you're going to have 1 more swivel on this. The reason why is it's far better on the animal. This trap has not been fully modified yet, but this is close enough to town. I'm on it every day, first thing in the morning, so nothing's ever going to be in here that long. And usually, you're not going to want to dig up and make this much of a mess, but if you haven't been able to notice out here in this wheat stubble, it's dirty everywhere. So actually blending this trap in is going to be very, very easy. So now we got the trap on the dogless design. The pan actually attaches to the top part of the jaw right up here. So that's still important because this right here is a dead spot on the trap. So no matter what steps on there, as heavy as it is, it's not going to fire this trap. And so I still need to step right around in here. So how I'm going to do that is I'm going to place that dog against the cover, against my backing. So I can still get one if they're coming down this line, or if they're coming up here, or coming up here. Obviously there's nothing back here. I'm going to have the bait dug in at an angle, and I'll actually do a 2 bait set, so I'll do 1 on each side, and that'll just kind of play for the wind. The wind's important to factor in because if the coyotes can't smell it, you're never going to trap them. So right now we got a southeast wind. It's going to go to south. Later in the week it's going to go to north, and so this whole area is going to be kind of broadcasted, and that's what I'm looking for. So next thing I'm going to do is get my antifreeze dirt. We'll go ahead and get the trap bedded in, and we'll start the blending process. So what I'm doing is I'm actually bedding in the trap. So that way it's solid. So that way if a coyote steps on the edge, the trap doesn't roll up or anything. So how I do that is I just keep on tamper on it. This is the antifreeze dirt. That's why there's a huge trap bed. Typically, I only like to dig a trap bed that's the size of the trap. It's too late in the year, so you gotta do what you gotta do. So if you can see that, I'm putting pressure right here, and the trap's not moving. I'm getting a little bit of wiggle out of the jaw. That's because it's flexing in the dirt. You see how the back here is not standing up at all? That's where you want to bed your trap. And it's a little bit lower, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of build this area up. There's going to be a smaller, it's going to be about, I don't know, 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch of dirt on top of the pan, but everything else is going to be higher. So that's going to kind of help direct that coyote to step in that lower spot. That's why it's so deep. I'm a big fan. The deeper the catch, The deeper the coyote puts his foot in there and the jaws come up, the better that catch is, higher up on the wrist or the ankle. So and you can see the dirt doesn't match the dirts around here. That's not a big deal, we'll actually blend that in. I don't know if Brian can zoom in at all, but right here you can see there's just a little bit of the pan. So that's what I'm looking for. So now I'm going to build up off that. So she's not going to look invisible yet, but that's because some of this dirt is still wet, and so it hasn't really folded in yet. And so now I'm going to take this little rod I've got. So I use this for my flat sets, and that's what this is going to be. So I'm going to put one right here, right along again, along this backing right here. Just kind of burrow it out. Depth doesn't make that big of a difference. You just want to make sure it's big enough so that way you can get your lure in there or your bait. And then the next one I got to pick, I can either put it on this strand right here, and what that's doing is depending on what the wind is doing. And so if I put it right here, this is more for an east wind, which it is springtime, we do get east wind, but we're still going to be prevailing from south and then northwest. And so we got that front coming in, so we're going to have a northwest wind. On normal days, we're going to have a south wind. So that's not going to be the best spot. And so what I'll do is I'll actually put it right here. This is right on the edge of the trap bed. And then behind me, I'm lucky because it's close, I just found this white rock. So what I'll do is I'll actually put this white rock right over the top of it. So I created this backing. It's just natural, right? You can use anything. You can use a tumbleweed, you can use a tuft of grass. I like something solid that's not going to blow away, or the dog actually has to hit it, right, to get it to move. And that's where we want them to be. It's a little bit lower right there. The wind is going to be our friend and kind of keep on blowing some of this stuff up. And it will blow in a lot of times these little holes that we have for bait. But it's all right. All right, so when I'm done, I'll actually take that rock and put it right on top of that. We got this hole right here, so we're good. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go get my lure and bait. So this right here is a really good classic coyote example of a foothold trap setup. Again, we're in a wheat field. We got a watershed behind us. We're on the field edge. It's not the most ideal location, but it's as deep as we can get with still having an vantage point to be able to see it. So without having to drive to the trap. So what I'm using right here is more of a bite and pull style bait or lure. It's kind of a mixture of both. And it's a newer one I'm trying this year. So don't really have a whole lot of success with it yet. Now the next one we're actually going to use a gland lure. And the reason why is it's February. It's actually late February. Probably most of the dogs have been bred, but they're still kind of chasing each other and there's still dominance going on. It's just like post-rut, you know. And so I'm going to use this coyote gland. And it on this. There is no rhyme or reason to why I chose whatever hole, in case anybody was asking. So I just kind of spread out some of that coyote gland farther up too, just in case. I'm just trying to get a little bit more of a, I want them to key in on this area. So they're gonna have smells here and smells there, and so they'll start walking around, and that's why I kind of have a food type lure in there too for my flat sets. So that way it kind of keeps them around a little bit longer. There's a bunch of good manufacturers out there that make those food lures. I can't say any one of them's worked better than the other. But yeah, so that's why I do that. So this is a flat set. The next set we're going to do is we'll actually do a big old dirt hole set. So we'll get going on that one.